All right, so this video is going to be really quick. I'm going to show you how I do my proposals, and it's a few steps. So if we can consolidate this to make this faster, please let me know. And if there's any steps that you're confused on, also let me know. So depending on how you get the job, whether it's already up in the takeoff software, you get the email, or you find it yourself, a lot of these bids have hundreds of pages. So what you want to do is go through all the pages, because we're going to be bidding on all the low voltage, security, card access, cameras, intrusion, intercoms, and definitely fire alarms. So we want to make sure we extract and pull out those drawings. So when we upload it to Esticom, we only upload the drawings that we need to work on. So what you want to do when you get to Adobe, and I'll give you access to my Adobe Suites software, so that way you could actually do this yourself. When you get into the Adobe, you want to click on All Tools, go to Organize Pages, select the pages, the range of pages that you want, highlight each one, or you can select them individually. And then what you would do is just extract them and extract them as a separate file. So once you extract it, it's going to be on your hard drive. Then now you can just go to the takeoff software and you can create a new project. When you create a new project, this is very simple. You could use one of these as a template. You click on confirm. You want to make sure you put the project name and the due date time. And we want to make sure we 24 or 48 hours before the actual due date to give us time to actually build the quote. And also one thing inside of here, I want to start putting in the actual price. I downloaded the spreadsheet, and I'll send over a price sheet for the fire alarm and all the equipment that we actually sell. So that way when we start building the quotes, we can have one step eliminated and move a little bit faster. But like I said, if any steps confuse you, let me know. And if we can make this shorter, also let me know. So once we upload the drawings, we'll go to the takeoff, and we could go and click in all of our devices, so that way we could actually get our quantities. We want to make sure we have our devices aligned up to the devices that's actually on this particular job. And whatever we don't need or use, we can just delete by clicking over here and then clicking delete, because we don't need these devices. We don't need all this extra information. Now, another thing when it comes to building out your fire alarm parts, we want to also think about the electrical side, the conduit, and also the fire alarm wire. How much wire are we going to need or potentially need for this particular job? Now, being that we're going to be bidding the entire fire alarm project, and Elite Electrical is going to be doing the install, we're going to be working out the install price, because we're just going to bid the whole entire thing. So really, you let me know. We could bid it smarts and parts, and then you give us the install price and we combine it, or I'll create one entire proposal for the whole fire alarm system, and then we work out how much we're going to get as far as the install. But I have a price sheet that I'm going to go through when I actually calculate the price, to show you how much profit the company is going to make per job and how we can divvy it out. So for you to get a quick understanding of how much wire and things you're going to need, we want to first make sure we have the drawings to scale. So we want to see what the scale dimensions are. 1/4 equals 1 foot. And we just want to make sure we put that in, so that way we can get an accurate count. And we'd apply it to all the drawings. Or you could just apply it to this. So we want to hit the plus sign, and I usually just type in the word wire, because I'm looking for anything that's just going to give me linear feet, right? So we use this doorbell wire, and we have the feet, length, and the color. The linear means it's just going to go in a straight line, but linear with drop, because we have horn strobes coming down from the wall, or we have pull stations that's mounted on the wall. So what this is calculating the drop. So we go to the point, and then we drop the cable to either one of those devices, is going to give us an extra 6 feet per drop. So this is why we use linear with drop. So if we want to get just an overall basic of how much wire we think we're going to need, we could just go from one side to the next, and that's going to give us 92 feet. So figure this is 100 feet from one side to the next. So we just could do an estimate. We probably need 1,000 feet for this particular floor. Or what we can do is go from each device. So let's say we know that the fire alarm, the start is going to be from here. We can start from this point and then go from the device, go to each device. And once you go to each device, it'll give you an accurate count of how much wire you would actually need per floor. Then from there, you could determine how many rows of 16, how many rows of 14 you're going to need for this entire project. So once you have all of that information, you got all of your devices clicked up, you got your wire and your conduit figured out, you want to go over to proposal. But let me click on estimating. When we pre-fill out this information, we could already have our labor included, material markup included. We can have everything included, so that way we could already have our price. But being that we don't have it like that, we just have to do a couple of extra steps. So we click on proposal, and really all I use this for is the quantities because I don't have any prices in it. So I'll click on show proposal, so that way I know how many devices that I need to go into the next step. From there, I'll export it. It'll save it to my hard drive. Then I'll come over to the kitty build or the K quote. And when you're dealing with fire alarm, whatever manufacturer you're dealing with, they will have their own spreadsheet for you to price out a particular job. So if it's Kitty, if it's Edwards, if it's IO, if it's along those lines, I can bid those jobs. If it's like Simplex, Notify, or those other systems, we're going to have to work with those particular companies that services those panels to get a price from it and then put our markup on top of it. However, when it comes to Firelight or Silent Night, these are something that's bought over counter, so we could also bid on those too. So I really only focus on the Edwards and the Silent Night. And inside here, we have user net price, and then we have director net price. Now, this is for us. The direct net price is us. This is how much we're going to be paying for the fire alarm equipment. This is what the manufacturer suggests us to sell it at on the market. So this is the MSRP price. So we buy it for $322, and we have to sell it for $658.92. But we can't sell it no lower than $322.87. When we're doing an install price, the price would be too high to go for the user net, so we could usually go 35% above the direct net to keep the price competitive. But there's a bunch of different strategies you can use when it comes to pricing out, and I don't want to get into all of that right now. So let's say we got all our pricing. We know how much we're going to pay because it's $5,000. But how much we should sell it for is $12,000. This is what the suggested price we should sell it for, so we can make a little bit under $8,000 in profit on just the material. So with no calculations, you could do it this way, take this price and then put the total labor, calculate it, boom, this is what we're going to do. Or you can just take this actual cost and actually build the quote out. I'm going to show you how to do it the full way. Then from there, you can make adjustments to come up with the same price or better price. So now we know that our material cost is about $5,000. This is all just the fire alarm equipment. We still got to price out the fire alarm wire. We need to know how many rolls, 3 rolls a piece, 4 rolls a piece, and we got to calculate that. I have price sheets for that. Then also the electrical equipment. We have to look at Home Depot or go to Granger and start getting pricing for straps, connectors, conduits, and things like that. So once we total up our pricing, and I usually do this on a piece of paper, and some of the things that's static is like the engineering, because we have to find out if we're going to be doing the engineering. We'll send it over to Gary for his price. But usually on a small job, we'll charge $15,000 on like a small project, and then we'll get Gary to do it for like less. We'll try to beat him down $10,000 or less. But if it's a large project, I usually bid $40,000 to $50,000 and then give him like $30,000. Still try to beat him up on less. But you'll see the differences in how I charge when it comes to engineering. Because I've been working with him so long, I know how much he's typically going to charge. So once we do that, another static thing is the central station. So we will supply the communicator, we will install the communicator, we will run the network cable, we will hook it up to the fire alarm panel, we will do all the programming, activate the central station, send the paperwork out so that way they could sign it, and there's a process for that too. Then we will create the account inside the portal, activate it, test it, and do all of that for $3,500. That's one complete price for all of that entire process. So once we have the $3,500, the $5,000, Gary's price, we'll include that into the material cost. So Gary's price, let's say it's $10,000. The fire alarm wire and the electrical is another $3,000. So the fire alarm material and all that other stuff, let's just say that's $20,000 total. Let's say the project is going to be going to take us 2 weeks to do the project, and it's going to take us 2 guys. Now, typically, I'm not using the $187 or the $95. What I'm using is the actual cost of what it's going to pay a technician, and it's usually $40 an hour. So if it's 2 guys, it's going to be $80 an hour, and if it's going to be 2 weeks, it's going to be for 80 hours. So it's going to give us the total labor rate. This is what we're going to have to pay out of pocket for payroll, $6,400. So now the total labor cost is including the 2.5% markup, so that way we can keep a 60% profit margin. So that way the company at the end can make money. Now, let's say the material cost is $20,000, and the markup for the material is also trying to maintain a 60% margin, so it marks it up at 2.5%. Now, for the markup for the material and the markup for the labor, it can be adjusted if you feel the price is too high. If this is within budget, go with the numbers. Don't be afraid to bid whatever the price is. So we go back to 2.5. So now it's going to give us the total labor cost. Now, what this is doing is adding up the markup material and the labor cost. So it's adding up how much we are charging for the labor total and how much we are charging for the material total. So that's 66,000. So now we took care of the employees and their markup. Now it's time the business have to make money. And this is where I used to not make money. This is where I used to lose money in the beginning, because I never charged for the business. I always just charged for myself and thought that's what I needed to do. Now we have to start including the expenses, profits that the business has to maintain. The expenses is the stuff we pay on a monthly basis, the credit cards, the rental spaces, and everything else that the business has to pay on a monthly basis. And that's usually done with a percentage. And so for the sake of the company making money, we putting up another just 10% on top of the total labor cost. So that's going to add another $6,000. So now the total project cost that we're going to potentially charge, not yet, but almost, is $72,000. Now it's time for the company to get the profits. So we add another 10% on top of that. And all of these calculations are done automatically once you actually put this information in. So the total price would be $79,860. Now, if you feel that's too much, then adjust the price. This is just an example of how we use the spreadsheet. So it automatically calculates what the total profit should be for the company, and it's going to tell us what to do with the profits. We have the tax account we got to put some money in. We got the retained earnings. This is what's going to help grow the business. And the owner's draw is actually where we're going to get money from the business. This is the actual profits that the business have after it pays everything from the project. So this money right here, whatever the percentages that we're divvying out, this is how we will be getting paid per project. So now that we got the price and quantities, now it's time to build out the proposal. If it's fire alarm, alarm image, cameras, whatever it is, make sure it's that particular image pertaining to that quote. Whatever the project is, the address, make sure the date is today's date or whatever the date you're sending it out. Adjust who the is for. If you know who you're sending this to, put their name. You put your name here because you're the one preparing it. Like I said, also adjust the date. Make sure the date is correct. When it comes to the quotation number, how I do this is I get the company name, the initials of the company name, if it's a fire alarm installation, and then today's date. So initials, what the job is, and the date. Now, if you have any issues with this template going out of whack, it's real easy to fix. All you got to do is just make sure you use spacebar and delete, and you'll be able to make some adjustments. When you're inside the K quote, you can hit Control P, so that way you can print this out. And when you print this out, this is what you're going to use to build a quote. So it says if it's fire alarm control panel, batteries, that's the exact list we're going to use to demonstrate here. So we're going to put if it's fire alarm control panel, fire alarm remote annunciator, batteries, whatever the information is, that's how we're going to line it up. And then at the end of it is where we're going to adjust this other static information. So if we want to add something, we just go at the end of one column, press enter, put the information in, use the tab button, and then place the information that we need to place in. If we want to delete anything, all we have to do is make sure we highlight that line, and then now we delete it. We can make sure the quantities of wire, make sure we just have all the information pertaining to our quote only for this specific project. It's always going to be this information down here will be pretty much static. Just adjust your quantities of wire you need. Programming is we're giving, of course, programming is giving. Signage, that's the riser diagram and any other paperwork that we got to give. There's always going to be a 2-man electrical crew, 1 fire alarm programmer / project manager. The central station is $3,500. Then we include fire alarm pre-test because we have to test it. Final inspection. This is what Gary takes care of. The shop drawing submittals and all that other good stuff. This right here, verify. I just usually put that in. This means that once we get the project, we're going to come to the and look at the system. If it's an existing system, or we're going to look at the site to see how we're going to put the system in. Then we just let them know that we're going to prepare the as-builts. We're going to be doing some Hilti fire stop, and then the fire alarm. So now you see we have some information down here. This was a different quote for something else that we would include in electrical. So all of this will actually be coming out because we don't need this information. But let's say we just remove this. So now that we have everything lined up, we have all of our quantities of devices. We make sure we have our dates, make sure our date is correct, make sure the quotation is correct, make sure we adjust this specific to the project. These are the payment terms: 30% down payment, 30% engineering, equipment. If you feel you want to outline this a better way, do so. If you want 50% up front, whatever the cost is, but we definitely need to get paid up front. So we just keep verifying that all of this information is just adjusted to this specific client. And down at the bottom is the price where we could put our numbers, and then we have to write it out in words. So whatever the numbers are, we need to have that exactly in words, because words is what they usually go by. So that's potentially all the steps that we would take to write up a proposal. Now, if there's any questions that you have about the labor rate, about how much we should charge, about how much this costs, I'm going to put a bunch of PDFs and spreadsheets inside of the folder, the drive that we have access to. And just remember, we're just trying to maintain 2.5% or 60% margin. So any cost that we have to pay, we just multiply by 2.5%, and that would be our actual charge.